Okay, 3, 2.
Wait. Hold on. Hi, this is Robert Brees on the CEO Forum, and we're here today with Mike O'Neill. How are you,
I'm
Mike?
doing well, thank you, Robin.
And Mike is the CEO of MSA Security.
Right.
You may have heard of this, you may not have, but it's something you need to hear about because this is the whole future of combating terrorism.
Right.
Talk about what the organization is.
Well, we deal with high consequence threat protection, really particularly in the explosive arena, and with active shooter elements at major financial institutions, real estate locations, sports and entertainment. We're not your typical security guard company. Like I said, we kind of target that high consequence space with something that could have an impact on the organization, could disrupt it greatly.
And when you mention that, we'll talk about it more later, but this is also relevant to CEOs,
Right.
which I actually was not as aware of,
Right.
but it's really interesting how many CEOs actually work with you to prevent high consequence
Right.
incidents.
So the way I see it is we're in a business of business as usual. That's our tagline. We're trying to keep your operation going. We're trying to prevent those high consequence issues from occurring at your location so that you could do your job every single day, whether it's mail screening through an x-ray machine or a potential active shooter element developing in your lobby or some type of explosive incident with a vehicle bomb or something in your loading dock, something like that.
Now, later on, we're going to talk about the whole model because it's really interesting. And, you know, your background being on the NYPD
Right.
and being the first person who has actually encountered terrorism. And we'll talk about how that worked and how all of your people have, and it's 1,000 people, the organization is now,
Right.
and how you grew the company from 150 to 1,000 people. But for now, let's first talk more about, so I'm a CEO of a company, and I don't want to have I don't want people with machine guns. I don't want to have, German shepherds there because that's going to scare away my customers. So that seems like something that would be a disconnect.
Right.
What's your experience there?
Yeah, I think it's actually the opposite. What we try to do is we try to blend into the environment. If it's a canine, we try to put a friendly looking dog there that people are not.
What's the most popular dog?
A Labrador. So
Why is that?
because they're high energy dogs, they're friendly looking. I don't think anyone sees a Labrador that doesn't like dogs and doesn't put a smile on their face when they see the dog. It's not there to intimidate you. It's not there to scare you. It's actually something we did as a business model. They have high drive, high energy. It's a perfect bomb dog for us.
Do those dogs ever become like let's say you're working with, I know you work with a lot of major banks. Do they ever become almost like part of the culture where people know them by name and they're like, oh, Maggie, how are you doing? And then
I say this all the time. A building could have 10,000 people in it. No one, the handler could work there for 15 years. No one will know the name of the handler, but every single person in that building knows the name of the dog. We've had dogs that, have reached their late stages in life and passed away, and we get sympathy cards from
really?
the corporation saying, hey, we're so sorry that the dog's gone, that type of thing. And
not the handler.
No, not the handler, but they'd be sorry for him or her too. But I think it actually becomes part of the culture of a company when they see a canine every single day in their lobby.
I bet it keeps retention too because they want to keep that dog. It becomes like almost a mascot.
Yeah, we have a high retention rate with our clients, and I think what happens is when people make a decision that they want to deal with some type of high consequence threat, whether it's mail screening with an x-ray machine or some potential explosive incident or active shooter, it's hard for them to pull back from that because they kind of made that leap of faith that we need this type of protection. And really, what my message is for a CEO would be is that we're going to protect your assets, we're going to protect your employees, but we're really trying to keep your business running and disrupt it from daily threats that could come into your location every day.
And you do have the largest bomb dog division in the world.
Yeah.
And what you've always said to me is we are the best at this.
Yeah. So it's a great question. When I first came to the company, I think we had 50 bomb dog teams. We had a training facility out in Pennsylvania. But I wanted to grow that stable of dogs without losing our ethos on how we train dogs, which we're very strict on. So we invested millions of dollars in training facilities. We have a 70,000 square foot facility up in Windsor, Connecticut, that's staffed with about 25, 30 individuals, and all they do is imprint and train dogs And I think it's actually unrivaled in the industry. I don't think anyone has that type of infrastructure to be able to turn out as many dog teams as we do and to keep them on explosives and good at what they're doing.
This is Robert Reese on the CEO Forum, where we speak with the CEOs who've reinvented the fabric of America. We're here today with Mike O'Neill, who is the CEO of MSA Securities or Security.
Security.
The website is?
It's msasecurity.net.
Okay, that's good. And so I want to ask you, you also have a division called Smart Tech,
right,
where you are definitively the leader in the industry.
Yeah, so what that is we develop a software that we're able to put on, we're in Smart Tech, the code number 4, which we keep rewriting the code just to go with the capabilities of the new X-ray machines. What it does, it gives us real-time audio and video of an X-ray image that a screener might see at any typical X-ray machine. So simply put, if a X-ray screener sees something that's troubling to them, they could hit a button and in real time connect with our command center here at 9 Murray Street and speak in real time to a certified bomb technician that's either an active or retired member of law enforcement of the military. And what they do is they do what we call X-ray interpretation. They look at that image, they will determine if it's a suspicious package or not, and determines if it's a red alert or it's a non-threatening object. And that all happens in a period of a minute.
Within 1 minute?
Yeah.
So you have probably averted problems from happening, where someone saw something and they thought it was. What's an example of that?
The one I think of is recently out at Stansted Airport, just north of London, for a major air cargo carrier. There was a image that came in on a Saturday, late at night, of appeared to be without question a pipe bomb with shrapnel on it, with what we look for as PIEs, power initiator explosive switch. It had those components. It didn't have some of the organic compounds that they would see. They could see the pipe bomb was empty. So they were close to calling it as a non-threatening object, but it was so dramatic, the image. Our detective downstairs did some basic investigatory efforts and Googled the name of the art company, looked at the manifest and saw that it was from an art gallery here in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And the name of the art was Pipe Bomb on a Skateboard. But they were about, I would say, 10 or 15 minutes from evacuating that airport. So with that phone call to our operator downstairs, they averted that. And that's a recent example. We have several like that.
And what's interesting, I'm thinking, I interview CEOs all the time, from a CEO's perspective, if you think about the cost of shutting things down, the disruption, the impact that can have on your stock, the impact that could have on your culture, and reputational loss, it's extraordinary, and sometimes it's something as innocuous as that. It's a piece of artwork.
I tell people all the time.
And within 1 minute, so it's not even a whole challenge.
Yeah, right. So you make one legitimate call to Smart Tech in the lifetime of your subscription to us, which is nominal. You'll pay for that service 100 times over.
Oh,
So it's a safety. I should have mentioned, it's a Safety Act certified service by the Department of Homeland Security.
What does that mean?
Yeah, Department of Homeland Security, right after 9/11, came up with a program because some of the big operators in the security field, like the Raytheons of the world, the Lockheeds, they didn't want to make counterterrorism widgets that they felt could fail, a piece of technology, and then they'd be sued forever. So in their wisdom, Department of Homeland Security created the Safety Act program where if they qualify a technology as an anti-terrorism technology and they research it and evaluate it, they'll give it the Safety Act seal of approval. And what that does, it does two things for me as a CEO. One, it's an independent person saying what you say is real and works.
So that gives people the comfort. Yeah. So they otherwise, like in healthcare, you have 5 people do the same diagnostics because no one wants to get sued. Now you have the comfort of that.
Yeah, that. And so if that technology failed on our part, it's something we should have picked up. Say that pipe bomb got through. You'd be sued to the cap of your insurance program, and then the federal government would come in and indemnify you for the remainder of that and take it out of your hands. So it evaluates the service. It kind of gives it that seal of approval, but it also protects you from an insurance standpoint from liability.
This is Robert Reese. We are speaking with Mike O'Neill, who is the CEO of MSA Security. It's a company that has grown to about 1,000 people. He grew it from when he became CEO from 150 people to 1,000. We're going to hear about how that growth happened, what the culture's like. We're also going to hear about your experiences on the police force, including 9/11.
Sure.
And then a little bit, hopefully we'll have time to talk about the future of threats and where that's at and how CEOs need to think.
Sure.
Back in a few.
Sure.
Hi, this is Robert Reese on the CEO Forum, and we're here today with Mike O'Neill, who is the CEO of MSA Securities. So let's talk, when you became CEO here, you had been on the police force for 22 years, right? And you become CEO, there were about 150 people here. Today, there's over 1,000 people.
Right.
And you have this unique culture too. Talk about how this growth happened, and then let's talk about what the culture actually is.
Yeah, so when I first came to the company, it was really a New York City-based company. I would say it's more focused on relationships, people we kind of knew in the industry that might have went to work at a financial institution. When I came here, I figured what they had was kind of, lightning in a bottle. I said we could expand this across the country, across the world. These two services, particularly Smart Tech and the Bomb Dogs, I said if we replicate the quality of this.
And quality is everything.
Quality
you've told me you want to be number one in everything you do because the stakes are so high.
Right. So I know it sounds cliche, but we don't need to be the biggest security guard company in the world, but I want the reputation to be the best at what we do. The two core services of this company are the Smart Tech X-ray, remote X-ray imaging, and the Bomb Dogs. So we have a reputation in the industry for both of those services being, one, the only one that does it, but the other one as well as being the gold standard in making Bomb Dogs and making sure that their quality of what they do is every day on their post.
And so then when you built this, you recruit a lot from retired cops, from current, but really from people who have an expertise in these areas.
Right, I'll use the NYPD's example of something I'm very familiar with. The NYPD at its heyday had 50,000 uniformed officers, but there's a saying in the NYPD that, but we know where all the good cops are, and people say, well, that's impossible. I said, but we do, because your reputation goes a long way, and whether you're a cop in the Bronx or a cop in Brooklyn, a cop in Queens, if you're a great cop, people hear about you and they know about you. So we kind of took that ethos here, where if you want a job here, we're going to take the best of the best. We're going to pay you a fair wage that's competitive. We're going to make sure you're happy with what you do. We want you to love working here at MSA Security.
And I met someone on the street who was a cop, and it turned out his dad works for you. I said, what does he think? He said, it's the best ever. Yeah. People are just, they're in their element, they love what they do, and they feel like there's a higher purpose of what they're doing.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. Warms my heart.
So what's the culture like then?
The culture, there's a culture in policing where when you're out on the street, you can really only rely on the man and woman next to you. It really develops a really strong bond between law enforcement. So you start to care about that person, you start to care about their family. And I think we've translated that culture very well here. We are about business, we're about making money, about being profitable, but not at any expense. So if someone's hurt or if their family member's sick, I'm a strong believer in making sure that we support them. And I think that's kind of how we develop our ethos and culture, because that goes a real long way. Even with 1,000 employees, if they get a phone call from me or for somebody to say, hey, we're here to help you, just tell us what you need.
Yeah, and I could see the way people, treated you here when you walk through the halls.
Yeah.
It's there's real camaraderie. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So let's shift a little, and now we're speaking with Mike O'Neill, who is the CEO of MSA Security, and talk about future threats.
Right.
Give us a snapshot of where the world is going and where people have to look to stop threats.
Yeah, so when I first started here 7 years ago, there was a major financial institution called me up and said, hey, I want to make sure your bomb dog handlers aren't bringing weapons into the building because we have a no firearms policy. We think they're great people. We just want to make sure because we know that.
And you want it to feel like it's the company, like you're saying. Sure. That's why you have the nice dogs in there.
Absolutely. We said no problem. I said I'll make sure I reinforce with all those handlers that they're not to bring their weapons into the facility. So you fast forward 7 years later with that same institution. They, 2 years ago they wanted to do a different contract to make sure all our handlers were armed. And then now they're asking us, hey, can we train them with long weapons in case an active shooter happens? And the reason I bring that story up is you see how the threats evolve. It goes from, Core Al-Qaeda doing spectacular attacks like at the Trade Center, to radicalize and spot individuals carrying out what I would call small-scale, small-tech attacks, whether it's a active shooter, it's a pressure cooker, or if it's a vehicle bomb at the curb line.
And so they say, oh, these people, they were sold, they were not involved with Al-Qaeda. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's a good question to ask. When I was in the police department, we used to look to identify the threat as the far threat and the near threat. The far threat would be that core Al-Qaeda centralized groups trying to plan a spectacular attack where it's multiple car bombs or something like we saw at the Trade Center. And the near threat was who's radicalized by that core Al-Qaeda element far away. And that near threat was more low scale, but high consequence capability.
So these people are all influenced. So they're not really involved, but there's this social network and people are influenced, and then they carry that out.
So when I first started in terrorism, there was no Facebook or Twitter, and you couldn't be that influenced over media like that. Now, what ISIS has done successfully is influence a lot of people and radicalize them over the internet. So are they part of ISIS? That's the question you always hear on news programs. No, but they're inspired by ISIS, and you'll find that. They're either looked at messaging from an individual in ISIS, they might have took a trip to the area and came back and been radicalized. So yeah, that's how that threat's evolved. The threat's evolved where social media and other sites are now radicalizing young people to carry out attacks in their name.
It's tough. Let's shift back to your career where you were actually the first commanding officer of what was the exact title?
The
it was?
Counterterrorism Division.
Of the counterterrorism in New York. That must have been something. And
yeah.
You had a deep experience with 9/11.
Right. So when 9/11 happened, I was there at the site that day, and I lived there for about 60-something days. So it had an impact on me. It had an impact on a lot of people, so I'm not alone in that. But what I did, I think that was a little different. As I said, I'm going to write a white paper for the police department that I think we need to change the way we do policing to deal with this new threat. And at the time, there was no counterterrorism bureau in the police department. There was a small cadre of a lieutenant and about a handful of detectives assigned to the Joint Terrorist Task Force. That was it. Commissioner Kelly came into office like within a couple of months. He had a focus on terrorism. One of my chiefs was picked to be the chief of counterterrorism, and he took me along because I wrote that white paper. And we created the Counterterrorism Bureau and the Counterterrorism Division, and the rest is history. And now that's 15 plus years later, it's a 1,000-man bureau in the police department. It was very different because it was a mission that never existed in the police department. We had to kind of create the response to that mission. So it was interesting. It actually helped me with this job because it made me think innovatively about how we would address things. I used to say I used to sell the NYPD counterterrorism program to people, and that's what I feel like I do here. I sell what we do here in high consequence threat.
Every CEO is the top salesperson because it's of top importance. So you have 1 minute left. What is the future of MSA?
Yeah, I think the future of MSA is to grow in capability and assets, but never lose the quality. So the way you do that is by investing in more infrastructure and actually getting, what I would tell you is the dogs that we had 15, 20 years ago were good. They're better today. They're better, and there's much more of them today. And that's something that makes me very proud. The smart tech service that you saw downstairs is better than what it was when I first came here. We have 38 bomb techs now assigned to that room. When I first came in here, we had 9. So it's growing our capability and maintaining our quality. And unfortunately, I used to tell people, it would be the greatest thing in the world if a company like MSA Security didn't exist because we had no high consequence threats in the world. And that's our ultimate goal.
There you go. So for CEOs who are interested, your website is?
MSAsecurity.net.
A pleasure speaking with you on the CEO Forum.
All right. Thank you very much. All right.